Welcome back here to Mighty Mac on YouTube. Once again, if you guys like the content that we provide here, then be sure to subscribe today to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content, as we have just started the 2025 drag racing season. So if you want to stay up to date with all the news, action, and highlights from each event throughout the 2025 calendar year, then be sure to subscribe today so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. And without further ado, let's get into the video. The second annual Piro Superstar Shootout just wrapped up qualifying down in Bradenton, Florida tonight. We saw once again some incredible action throughout the 4 rounds of pro qualifying through the 3 classes, but that didn't come without some major delays for track cleanup throughout the 4 sessions. We saw 2 big ones today, one of them that took over an hour to clean up an oil spill caused by Greg Stainfield while he was preparing to do his Q2 run. There was another one later in the day that was caused by Antron Brown, an incident involving him, which we'll get into later. But I don't know what it is that's going on. Incidents like these obviously make you appreciate what the NHRA Safety Safari is able to do, because of the fact that they are able to clean these tracks up so fast and able to get the cars back running as soon as possible in a timely manner. And it's something that I think a lot of fans take for granted. I've been in a lot of group chats with some people talking about how it is that this is similar to what the radial events experience, and for them having an hour delay isn't much of a surprise, but for people who watch the NHRA, it is a bit of a surprise. The only time we really see hour-long delays is when someone breaks the rear end and drags oil from the starting line all the way to the shutdown area and beyond, but not usually when there's an oil spill right at the 60-foot mark and not really much further beyond that. So I'm not sure what needs to change. I understand that you want to completely take care of the racetrack to make sure it's not only safe, but is able to go out there and set fast ETs and quick speeds. But something needs to change, especially when you have the Safety Safari on the property. If there's these talks of always wanting to make the event better, both on the NHRA side and the pro side, then something's got to change in terms of how the track prep is, because an hour-long delay, I fell asleep just waiting for the track to be completely ready to send the cars back down the racetrack. And it honestly got to the point where it was frustrating. So I'm not sure what needs to change, but something does. And to continue on with that, I don't know what it is, and I talked to a couple people about this as well, the event feels like it's kind of lost a bit of its luster and a lack of hype that came into this event compared to what we saw last year. And while yes, last year was the inaugural event and there was a ton of hype surrounding the event walking into qualifying, that's just not here this year, and neither was really the same amount of promotion for the event that we saw. If you follow the NHRA social pages for the teams, you definitely saw them post about it. They were promoting the event like crazy. But I remember last year having my friends who don't watch drag racing, who watch dirt racing and NASCAR, come up to me and say, hey, what is this shootout event? I didn't get that this year. I watched the Chili Bowl. I didn't even see it then, except outside of a passing comment from a commentator talking about the list of events you can get when you subscribe to Flow Racing. But I didn't see any on-screen advertisements for the event like I saw in the past. I also didn't see, scrolling through Facebook and Instagram, the same amount of ads that I saw last year. Last year, this event was shoved down your throat, and this year, not to be a dick about it, it just seems like a big testing session. I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. And this event is cool. I like this event. It kind of feels like the same way that the Bud Shootout feels for NASCAR. This is a cool event. It's a really good kickoff to the season. But the promotion and the excitement is missing, especially when you had not the same amount of cars in the classes. And I understand there's a lot of things surrounding that in terms of trying to get the teams together, funding together, and getting all the guys down there in one area right before the season starts. But you're missing the Torrances, which there's another reason for why they didn't show up. Clay Milliken didn't show up. I'm still not sure the reason for that. There's a couple of funny cars missing as well. None of the JCM cars showed up between Edis Zetterstrom and Alexis DeJoria. And I believe part of that is a crew issue as well, but it's just not the same. And this is still a really cool event. And I hope that they take lessons from this and they're able to move on with it. But in terms of both track prep and the promotion for the event, something needs to change to bring this event back into the hype that we saw in year 1, because year 2 is just missing it. And I'm going to stop my complaining there, and let's go into the highlights for today's event. Because like I said at the top of the show, there was a lot of action that we saw in the 4 rounds, but not even that, it happened before qualifying, as during testing that took place before the event, Daniel Wilkerson had a very scary moment during a test run where he suffered a parachute failure. They did not deploy going down the track, and he ended up running it into the sand trap at the end of the track. Minimal damage was done to the car, but Daniel Wilkerson did have to go to a backup car for qualifying, which had a bit of an incident just trying to get the car ready, because they were obviously tuning another car and now had to turn around in 24 hours to get a new car ready that they hadn't prepared for. And they did a pretty good job. They had to wait until the last session to really put down a solid run to put them into the show safely and have a comfortable position heading into Saturday eliminations. Another incident that happened was for Antron Brown. Like I mentioned, he suffered an incident that caused a delay, the last delay of qualifying, and that was a tire failure, similar to what we saw with Sean Langdon and Doug Coletta, but not really the same as a tire clipping anything. As Antron Brown was approaching the end of the racetrack, it seemed like as soon as he stepped off the throttle, the tire completely shedded all the way down to the wheel and was sending sparks into the shutdown area and destroyed the top wing of Antron Brown's new top fuel dragster. He was able to secure the car under control and not collide with Doug Coletta, but a lot of damage was done to the top wing, and from what I heard from Antron, no damage was done to the engine, but they still decided to go back to the chassis that they won the championship with last year, and they were able to get that ready in time for the final round of qualifying. Bob Tasca suffered a similar failure, not on the same level though. He said in an interview when he got out of the car that his right rear tire had gone flat, and I saw a picture of it. There was a small hole in it. He came really close to having a similar incident with Antron Brown. Who knows how that could have gone, driving a fuel funny car 330 miles an hour, having a tire explosion. But that's 2 tire explosions in the same day. I'm not going to start speculating on what it is. I know Goodyear's taking looks at it, but some very interesting moments to kick off the 2025 season after what we saw with Sean Langdon at the end of last year and Doug Coletta the year prior, now seeing 3 tire explosions, 4 as I know of failures total. Finally, history will be made again. Last year, we saw the fastest run in funny car history be set when Bob Tasca went 341 miles an hour. This year, once again, in the final run of qualifying, we saw the quickest run in funny car history, this time being done by the reigning event and funny car world champion Austin Prock, who reset the record at a 3:791. And once again, I'm going to state this is not a NHRA national event record, so this is not going to count for the national record score, much like how it didn't for Bob Tasca. But Austin Prock did tie that speed at Pomona, and with how excited the team was after that run and how strong they have been throughout all of qualifying, I would not wait long to see that 379 once again pop up on the scoreboard. It came really close to 78. I think that is where Austin Prock is heading to next. And with where we're going at with Gainesville in the night qualifying session, with how fast it is, you can expect to see it there. But once again, we have a full recap of qualifying to go over, as well as the results from the chip draw. Here is how they shook up for your second annual Pro Superstar Shootout. Referring back to the shocks that we saw in qualifying, I don't think any was bigger outside of the Austin Prock run than Corey Reed, who made his debut in Pro Stock midway to the season last year, comes into his first Pro Superstar Shootout and takes the #1 qualifying honors with a 6.494 set in the final round of qualifying. He squared the tires in Q1, and throughout the rest of Friday, he set a 5.27, a 5.21, and a 6.494. So to take #1 honors for the top seed of qualifying. Throughout the rest of the order, much the same as what you saw, especially in terms of points if you can look at it. Greg Anderson round out second, Dallas Glenn third, Aaron Stanfield fourth, and Erica Enders, who did not participate in the last 2 runs of qualifying today, who has been feeling under the weather, settles back in the 5th position. Jed Coughlin Jr. continues to build on a momentum from the 2024 season. He rounds out 6th. Matt Latino filling in for Eric Latino rounds out 7th. Derek Kramer making his return after being absent from the last, I believe, 6 national events from last year. A really strong performance today. 3 solid runs, squared the tires in Q4. He rounds out the top half in 8th. David Quadra ended Friday night on the 4th position. He falls back to 9th. Mason McGahey down in 10th. Fernando Quadra Jr. 11th. His brother back in 12th. Greg Stainfield making his return to NHRA rounds out 13th. Bo Butner filling in for Stephen Bell, who was at the track for testing, had to leave right before qualifying started due to a family emergency. Mike Dunn alluded that it might be due to an issue with his mother, so I thought there was Stephen Bell at this time. Bo Butner jumps in the car at the last minute, qualifies 14th. Troy Coffin Jr. bumps his way into the show, and the last possible run in 15th. Chris McGahey rounds out the field in 16th, and the 2 cars not in the show, Larry Morgan and Brandon Miller. And like I referred to, history would be made in that final round of qualifying for the PR Superstar Shootout. Austin Prock would set the quickest run in funny car history with a 3:79 with a 1 to take #1 qualifying honors, but also had 3 impressive runs throughout the 4 sessions. He ran an 81 with a 6 in Q1, an 88 with a 2 in Q2, and ran an 86 in Q3. Matt Hagan also had an impressive run during his Q4 run, was down in the bottom half of the field, runs a 3:82 to round up in 2nd. Jack Beckman falls back to 3rd with a 3:825. He set that in Q4 as well. Ron Capps, another driver, bumps his way up into the 4th position with an 82 with an 8. Dan Wilkerson, like I said, in the backup car, jumps his way up into the 5th position with a 3:86. Bob Tasca, who came into the event not qualified after being bumped out by J.R. Todd, he moves himself up into the 6th position with a 3:86. Chad Green in 7th, and Bobby Bodie, one of the big surprises of the event so far, not so much because of the run, and while it was a very impressive run running a 3:88, he debuted in the Del Worsham car that was vacated by Alexis DeJoria. There's still really no word on what this deal with that car is. We do know that it's still owned and operated by Del Worsham, but in terms of what the future is for Del and that car, we have not gotten any answers yet in terms of whether or not Bobby Bodie will be running full season on that car. We know he doesn't own the car, but if this is the pairing that we're going to have in 2025, honestly, I'm here for it because Bobby Bodie set some really fast runs throughout 2024 in an old underfunded car, and now he's going in this Del Worsham Toyota Supra and set some very, very good runs in his first attempts with it. In Q1, he smoked the tires with a 4.233. In Q2, ran a 91 with a 7, did not make the run in Q3, and then ended it with an 88 with a 4 to round out the field in 8th. I believe that's the fastest run he has ever made, because I believe the fastest he had prior was a low 390, so he has done really well in the first few runs he had with that car, and I hope this is the future that DC Motorsports has, because if it is, look out for them, because if they can find the funding, they're going to be one of the guys to watch out for this season. In terms of the cars that did not make the show, J.R. Todd does not make it with a 389 with a 5, and Dave Richards falls short with a 394 with a 4. Lastly, in Top Fuel, Antron Brown comes out in Q4 and takes #1 qualifying in the car that he won the championship with a couple months ago with a 364. Doug Clutter rounds out second with a 65. Brittany Force rounds out third with a 66. Justin Ashley in 4th. Sean Langdon 5th. Sean Reed in 6th. Josh Hart in 7th, and for Tony Storr, the struggles continue. It looked like it had a good start in Q1 when he ran a 379 to put him up in the top half of the field, but throughout the heat of the day in Q2 and Q3, things just did not go his way. Smoked his tires both times, came out for the final run to run a 374, but that would keep him back in the 8th position. I know that is a new car. I'm hoping that what's going on right now is just the testing jitters to get used to that new car and just trying to throw something at the wall to see what that car will take and what it wants to do. But hopefully in time for Gainesville, that car is ready to go, because I know Tony is ready to get some win lights in this season. And Doug Foley does not make the show, rounding out in 9th with a 378. But from what I could tell, I don't really think that meant as much to him, because I think this was more so just an opportunity to get more testing runs under his belt, and if he made the show, then that was just an added bonus. But I think the main goal was for him to go out there and just have some more testing runs before he goes out to Gainesville, because while we know in the 16 car field he is a force to be reckoned with, to be one of the guys to solidly put himself into the show, he's coming here against some of the biggest teams in the sport. It was going to be an uphill battle for him to make the show anyways. He's going to go into tomorrow facing, I believe, J.R. Todd in the funny car Top Fuel run that they're going to have. So he's going to have some more opportunities at a run, but still an impressive start for Doug Foley for 2025. Sadly, he does not make the show. Now, in terms of who is facing who in round number 1 of the event, drawing number 1 in Pro Stock was Matt Latino and David Quadra. Dallas Glenn is going to face Jeg Coughlin Jr. Greg Anderson and Erica Enders draw chip number 3, so they will face each other in round 1 of eliminations. That is your marquee matchup for Pro Stock. Aaron Stanfield and Chris McGahey will take number 4. Fernando Quadra and Christian Quadra will take number 5, so the brothers will duel it out in round 1, which is what I was thinking was going to happen because they had a 25% chance of it happening, and if it didn't, it's rigged. Rounding out 6, Bo Butner and Troy Coughlin Jr. 7 is going to be number 1 qualifier Corey Reed and Mason McGahey, and finally Derek Kramer and Greg Stanfield. In the funny car, chip number 1 goes to Chad Green and Bobby Bodie. Ron Capps is going to face Daniel Wilkerson for the number 2 slot. Matt Hagan and Jack Beckman are the 3rd pair, and then lastly, this is going to be your marquee matchup of all time for this event. Austin Prock and Bob Tasker III draw the 4th chips for qualifying. They're going to duel it out in round 1. Those two have been at each other's throat. Not so much of a heated rivalry, but I know Bob Tasker is aiming for that Cornwell Tool Chevrolet body, so they're going to go everything they can to beat him. I know for a fact words have been said between the two already. It's going to get gritty by the time they go out there for round 1 of eliminations, especially with what Austin Prock did. Bob Tasker is going to be swinging for the fences because you have the quickest car in Funny Car versus the fastest car in Funny Car at that event. Lastly, in Top Fuel, Doug Coletta and Brittany Force draw chip number 1. Josh Hart and Tony Stewart draw chip 2. The teammates of Antron Brown, your number 1 qualifier, and Sean Reed draw 3rd. And Justin Ashley and Sean Langdon draw 4th. So there's pretty much 2 marquee matchups, but if you had to guess, it's going to be Doug versus Brittany because those two are 2 and 3 on the qualifying ladder. Brittany has been rebounding from how she did well at the end of the 2024 season. Doug Coletta has been on rails all weekend long. That is going to be the matchup to watch. So that is going to wrap up the qualifying recap here for the 2nd annual PR Superstar Shootout. We will be back tomorrow night for the full race recap as we get set for the Gator Nationals in about a month's time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, if you guys like the content, subscribe to the channel today so you don't miss any of the upcoming action. Be sure to follow me on social media pages down below. Mighty Macro 3 on TikTok. Not TikTok anymore. Oh, it is now, but I don't use it. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And until tomorrow night, this has been Mighty Mac. We'll see you next time.